back. We're here.
My brother in Christ.
Throwing you into the fire. Challenging movie tonight.
I'm curious, why was Kick-Ass on your mind recently?
I just hadn't seen it in a while. We got Peacock. We had to buy Peacock for the fucking playoffs, which is fucking stupid. I shouldn't have done that because now they got me.
Is that something you're going to keep?
Yeah, let's keep it because we're watching The Office on there and that 70s show. But I saw Kick-Ass was on there, and I was like, man, you know what? I have not seen this in so long. I was like, I would like to return to that. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll just do it for the podcast. It'd be fun.
Hey, you can watch wrestling, too, on Peacock.
Yeah, I know. I saw it. Dude, there's like everything there.
Yeah.
Like old matches, and yeah, I thought about checking it out. I'm like, oh my God, they got an Elimination Chamber from 2005 on here. Like, okay. But also, Melancholia was on Peacock.
That's true.
So we watched it on that. This is kind of a nostalgia film. This is like when Netflix first converted over to streaming. This movie was on there, like within the first couple of years, and it was like still picking up pace, and we had it out at the house. And me and my dad and my brother really liked this movie. My dad always liked the warehouse scenes and all that shit. It was cool for me and my brother and my dad to, it was like a bonding thing for us for sure.
Do you remember the first time that you did see it?
Yeah, I mean, I was young. I was like when it came out.
Okay. You'd have been 11-ish? You're born in 99, right?
2010. So yeah, it would have been 11. Maybe it was a couple years after it had came out. Like maybe 2013. I was pretty young, but they all blend together.
They still do.
Yes.
I can't remember if I saw this in theaters or not. I would have been about 16 at the time, high school.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw this in theaters, and I really liked it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it like really still holds up. I don't want to get too far away. We need to address the biggest event in the room.
Oh, yes, of course.
We are drinking Finn Du Monde tonight.
Making up for
the last episode.
Where we weren't able to find it.
Right. We had went to Jungle Jim's last weekend, which for viewers, I guess, that don't...
Outside of Ohio.
Yeah, or like general area. Like Jungle Jim's like an international food market. Kind of like a small landmark in this side of the state. So
it's like an 80s and 90s time capsule.
Yeah. It still runs really well. It's like just a grocery store, but it's got just about anything you could ever want to make anything.
I think me and Liv might be going there this weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I feel spoiled at being right there. They got like one of the best walk-in humidors I've been in. Good beer and wine stellar beer and wine section.
They have like dividers for states.
Yes, and regions, and they've got an excellent wine selection. Like they have thousands of dollars bottles of wines that are kept in a treated cellar that's viewable to the public even if you don't go in. It's very nice.
It's an eccentric place.
Yes.
With animatronics and a live animatronic band of animals?
Something like that. No, not there. I don't think anymore. But there's like a giant Campbell's soup can.
On a swing set.
On a swing set, yeah. It's a strange place. Yes, and it is very much 80s, 90s. Like, everything's a commercial. Everything's a character. The Kool-Aid Man.
I hope they never change it.
No, it has to stay. They have to hold the integrity. They have like their own podcast, believe it or not.
I think I knew about that.
Yeah.
They have signs for it around the store.
Yeah, it's very weird.
But yeah, Finn Du Monde.
Finn Du Monde.
One of the greatest beers ever made.
It doesn't get old. I don't know why. I just feel like every time I drink it, I'm reminded. Like, oh, yes, it's also like 10%. So it sits like in a good, happy spot as far as I'm concerned, as far as like alcohol by volume. Because 9%, it's not too boozy. There's a firmness to the drink. The other thing is, though, the alcohol, I don't know why like I'm getting so in-depth on Finn Du Monde, but like I guess there's a reason why it's so good.
It deserves it.
We don't even really talk about it. It's like, oh, yeah, it's the best beer ever. Trust me. But there's a weight to it, but it's also a nice, light, blonde beer.
Yes.
So it's...
insanely drinkable.
Yes. It's dangerous. And you even cracked open a Modelo Especial. I'm
trying to savor it
yeah.
while I can. We only have three bottles
tonight.
The two of us.
Yeah, man. Kick-ass. More like ass kick. I should call him ass kick.
I hadn't thought about this movie in over a decade. I don't know, like, does this have a place among, like, pop culture nowadays? Do people remember Kick-Ass?
I actually mentioned something to my coworkers. I said, me and Elizabeth watched Kick-Ass last night. They're like, oh, yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, Kick-Ass. I'm like, okay, people remember this movie.
Are there Zoomers out there that watch Kick-Ass?
I don't know.
I'll be real and say that I don't know if this one aged too good for me.
Really?
Personally.
Okay.
No. Not saying I hate it. I think it's a very watchable movie, and it is entertaining.
For sure.
I think it has a really clever premise.
I also think the one thing that definitely made it not hold up in some ways was some of the special effects in regards to like fire and maybe like the ending of the film in some way, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. There's a lot I do appreciate about this film.
Yeah.
Matthew Vaughn, are you very familiar with the director of this?
No, it's like just this movie.
I know that he did like the Kingsman films.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
But I've never seen those.
Really?
No.
Really? You would... The first one is remarkable.
For some reason, I get Kingsman confused with that spy movie, which I think is like a...
With Amy Schumer?
Is it Amy Schumer?
And Sandra Bullock?
What fucking movie is that?
I don't fucking know. One of those movies.
Melissa McCarthy?
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy. Not Amy Schumer. Yeah.
I think I saw that. I don't know if that's considered a good movie.
No.
I remember nothing about it.
Me neither.
I think that was like a parody of Kingsman, maybe?
Maybe.
All I know is outside of Kingsman, this Matthew Vaughn guy, he did recently that Argyle film that didn't do too good.
He's also the guy that's like been doing these types of films, these mob
action comedy,
UK action comedy, and I think he's probably wearing out the genre. It's like he's created the genre and now he's probably wearing it out. Well, shouldn't say he created the genre, but he's definitely been the most prominent director to like take on that specific, spy comedy.
I know he was slated to direct Kick-Ass 2, a film that I don't think anybody's seen in the world.
I've seen it.
Oh, you have? Heard it's
not great.
Jim Carrey's in it.
Yeah, that's right. He is in it.
I didn't think anybody saw that movie.
I've seen it, and it's not good.
Different writer, different director. Matthew Vaughn chose to do X-Men First Class instead of Kick-Ass 2.
Yeah, good for him. That's actually a good X-Men movie.
I heard.
Like the best, actually.
That's like the time-splitting one, right? Like two universes.
It's X-Men First Class is when they start the X-Men.
That's right. Like Michael Fassbender's
Michael
in that?
Fassbender, yeah, and he plays Magneto.
James McAvoy.
Yes,
plays
Professor X.
I need to get to that one.
It's good.
I've only ever seen the first two.
Kevin Bacon's in it too. I forgot.
Oh, Kevin Bacon.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Kevin Bacon actually plays a kind of like a foe or like a false antagonist. You actually got to watch that one time.
I think it'd be okay, even though I have intense superhero fatigue.
Yeah.
Because it's outside of the Marvel stuff, the MCU at least.
Oh, man.
Although now I know they are canon.
Yeah, they're working on an X-Men film, but I'm so burnt out. I don't care anymore. Like not really. Like I even want to get hyped for the Deadpool movie.
Have you seen the trailer?
Yeah. I'm just like, eh.
I thought it looked good actually.
No, I mean like it looks good, but I'm not excited to see it.
Well, I'm not jumping out of my seat or anything. I know I'll see it and I'll probably like it.
We did Logan. It's a special one.
It's an excellent film.
Yeah, but it's for other reasons too. Like Marvel hasn't really been that in a long time. The films don't feel like they stand on their own. They feel like DLC content.
Yeah.
And like it feels like Fortnite. It feels like this microtransaction churn that they're like, here's fucking garbage, eat it. I don't know.
I think they're taking a break right now.
Yeah.
Outside of Deadpool.
They're having a really hard time. Like it's failing. They're just losing them so much money.
And they just lost their long-form villain, Jonathan Majors, getting wrapped up in a bunch of court stuff. I mean, fuck him, but still. I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing for a while. It was a lot for years.
Something I liked about this movie was it kind of took on that fuck you. I am so tired of superhero movies that it kind of felt good to see it like kind of parodied.
At the time that this came out, I had never seen any of the MCU stuff up to that point.
By the way, like Iron Man is 2008, so like we're 2 years into it.
Yeah.
It's like Iron Man, Incredible, and Thor when this came out.
Incredible.
The Incredible Hulk.
Incredible
that
Hulk.
one with Edward Norton. That was like 2009.
As somebody that at the time had like zero interest in superhero stuff, this felt really fresh. Like this felt like it validated my disinterest in other Marvel shit.
Also, like the only rated R superhero film outside of this is Deadpool and Logan, which we've already spoken about. Like I'm reading Watchmen right now, the comic book.
Yeah, okay.
Which I've never seen the film. Like I know a lot of people have a hard time with it, which it's Zack Snyder, so like, take it for what it's like DC style.
The only Zack Snyder film I've seen is his Dawn of the Dead remake. I didn't really care for it. And that's considered one of his best movies.
I really want to see the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League really bad, but it's like I would have to devote a month of my life to finish it. Like, as much as I'm able to watch film, it's like I would have to devote so much of my time. It's fucking like 4.5 hours long.
I heard it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's like supposed to be very good. But let me put it this way.
Especially
it's like,
for DC.
Yeah, like it's like a home run compared to what they originally released when Zack Snyder got canned from Justice League and they like had another director come in and finish it. Like,
yeah, they had Joss Whedon.
Yeah. Why'd I pick a movie like this? Because now all we're going to do is sit here and talk about this.
At least we're justified this time around.
Like, Madam Web just came out, and like that was god awful. The same guy that did like Morbius, like they gave that guy a fucking job.
Yeah, they should have learned their lesson on that one.
I don't know what it is with Sony, man, but they're like, oh, we have this very small section of a property. Let's run with it.
I think they have to make a film about Spider-Man.
To hold the rights.
Yes. Why not just make a Spider-Man movie?
Well, they are, but they also, like, now freaking Spider-Verse isn't going to come out till 26, man. They're postponing it.
That's not like Sony's side, is it?
That's Sony. Yeah. Like, Spider-Verse movies are Sony.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Which, that's a completely different thing. Those movies are special in a way that's will hold for many years to come.
They're much higher on the grading scale.
They're like masterpieces.
Yeah. Are they making like an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man right now, or what?
I don't know. I don't care either.
I've heard they're making a Tobey one, too.
I don't know, man.
Now it's going to get really oversaturated.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Because they're like, oh, this worked. Like I said, I have no desire to go back and watch that movie. I'm like, I know what it was. I got to see it. They did it on screen, but it felt like a fan service.
Didn't hit quite the same the second time around. I'll say that.
I think the first and the second film are spectacular by themselves, though.
Yes, they
Tom
are.
Holland Spider-Man, I mean, they're great.
Especially love the first one.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of R-rated superhero films, there was 2 before Kick-Ass. Is Watchmen rated R
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
Okay, there's 3 then. Because there was Spawn.
Yeah. McFarlane Spawn.
And Blade, I think, is rated
yeah,
R.
Blade.
Never seen either of those.
Those are like not... Yeah, they don't have like a comedy twist on them either, though.
Yeah, they're like standalone.
Yeah.
Like before all the franchising.
Sin City is technically... It's not superhero, but it's a comic.
I didn't know that.
I believe so. I believe Sin City's a comic.
I always forget that other things can be a comic, like The Walking Dead or something.
Right,
you know?
right.
Now, Kick-Ass is a comic, but this isn't necessarily an adaptation
Yeah.
of the comic, because I think they were like written side by side.
How do you, I don't know, man. How do you feel about it? I mean, it's really cheesy at times, but also it's fucking banging.
I think I love most of the first act, and I think as it goes, it kind of loses what intrigued me from the beginning, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like the idea of a normal-ass kid solving boring crimes seemed like it'd be a fun movie. Going to rescue the cat, and then by the end, we're jetpacking and bazookaing.
Damn,
you know?
I didn't really think about that.
It's not that those parts are bad, but it's like the premise for me, like it kind of
It
forgets
gets
what
buried.
it was.
Yeah, it gets buried by the end for sure.
Yeah.
But it also, like, you've got like 2 character arcs in one movie, I think. You have like the much stronger, more serious character arc being Hit Girl and Big Daddy, you know, their whole operation to overthrow. Now, they intersect really well, which is what I like. I understand that the premise gets far away, but they like mingle so well that it's kind of believable because they take such a big part of the story as well. Kick-Ass, his character, is really only meant to open the door into this world, and so he kind of gets wrapped up in their bullshit, which in turn, like him going to school with the mob boss's son, like there's a small subtlety in the way they kind of blend the two together, which I like. To me, like the way they hold your hand through it in a way where I'm not distracted by any exposition. I'm willing to like kind of let this movie just like take over my brain.
Like all like the narration stuff that kind of guides you.
You know, you get like a real hard cut into Marcus, our cop detective, old friend of Nicolas Cage's character. But that's just like thrown in the middle of the film. But at the same time, the way the scene opens, the scene could easily be dropped. But you get enough exposition within that scene to like validate Marcus's character.
There's like an implied history about it.
I also like want to compliment, I think in that scene specifically, like there is like comic transitions throughout the film, and this being one of them, but we actually get to see a hand-drawn comic of what Nicolas Cage's character has done.
Yes.
You know, which I really enjoy that. You know, as somebody that enjoys comic books, It's good homage to what you're basing the film off of.
Yeah.
And it's told like a comic book.
I liked all that stuff. Like the usage of like the pop-up bubbles to say like meanwhile when we cut to another scene. Like I think that's how we're introduced to Big Daddy and Hit Girl. We get a meanwhile little box in the corner.
Right, yeah.
And what's probably my favorite scene of the movie? Shooting the little girl.
Yes. You know, when you first get shown the scene, it's implied that he's just getting ready to murder his daughter. So, like, you know, already knowing the jokes for so long, it's like, you know, once the scene starts, you know where the joke ends.
Yes.
And so it's hard to recognize what made the joke funny in the first place. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, which is, again, in the first act. It's smart. I think it's a really well-written comedy with the dressing of an action comedy superhero film.
Yeah. It sets up the individual pieces early on in a very coherent way.
And then it lets itself get off the rails like any other action film.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. The Big Daddy and Hit Girl stuff was A+ for me. Everything involving them. And I like the way that they eventually mingle with the kick-ass side of things. Mm-hmm. I would be lying if I said that I enjoyed that more than like the two stories individually more. Like, do I want a Hit Girl movie or do I want a kick-ass movie? Like, I'd rather keep it separate, if that makes sense.
That's true. It's also something about how young she is hard. By the end of the film, her being how young she is, it's believable when her character is next to Big Daddy, like having this fatherly figure. But like once she's on her own, I'm like, you had all this time to learn this shit. I don't know if I believe that. You know what I mean?
It's like when her and Frank D'Amico, when they're having their fight at the end and this little girl is like getting pummeled, it's like reality starts to creep in. Like, oh Lord. Like,
yes,
it was cool earlier, but
it was.
Dear God.
This is terrible now.
I think there's something very, I hate to say the word easy, with having a young character do really vulgar things like murder and say like cunt, you know?
Something about the delivery is not quite authentic, maybe because she hasn't had that much practice like saying that shit. Like it's hard to come out like, that was badass. Did you hear how she said cunt? Like,
kids cussing.
Yes.
It almost always works. It's easy, but it's effective.
I think the shock value when this came out was a big deal.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah.
Definitely. Did you notice that Hit Girl was played by Chloe Grace Moretz?
Yes.
You remember her showing up in Suspiria?
Yeah.
In the first scene of that film.
Oh, God, dude. Don't remind me of Suspiria. I'm thinking about the bodies being turned around. Oh, my God. Why'd you remind me?
That's an interesting one.
Stop talking. Oh, no.
But it's weird. Like a few years later, she's doing that kind of role.
Right.
I don't know what she's up to nowadays, but she's great in this, though. I think she's like the top 2 highlight next to Nicolas Cage. Is it not weird seeing Aaron Taylor Johnson?
Yeah, so young. Man, it's weird. I remember seeing him in Godzilla. A couple years later, man, he's in Godzilla, like the American remake, like the reboot of Godzilla.
The Bryan Cranston one?
Yeah, man, he's in that.
Does he play?
He plays a soldier. He has like he's like one of the subplots in that film.
He was in Tenet?
Yeah, briefly? He was in Tenet. He looked badass in Tenet.
He showed up in Bullet Train last year.
Or 2 years ago. Yeah.
And he was really good.
Oh yeah, man.
In that.
Yeah, for sure.
Incredible comedic
timing. He's in he plays Quicksilver in Avengers, the second Avengers, Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
He plays Quicksilver next to Scarlet Witch. What's her face?
Olsen.
Yes.
One of the Olsens.
Elizabeth Olsen.
Which is weird because Evan Peters, who is like one of Kick-Ass's buddies, he also played Quicksilver in one of these.
Yeah, he does. He plays
it's an X-Men movie. Right?
Yes. It's not First Class though. It's the one after that.
Which is weird seeing Evan Peters, by the way. Like him showing up, I think years before like American Horror Story made him a name.
Yeah. God, he's fucking young in this too.
He played Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, he did. Holy shit.
Hey, everybody,
I didn't see that, by the way. I refuse to watch stuff like that.
I watched the first episode and said, I'm good. Yeah. And I think that says a lot coming from me.
I don't like that stuff because the way my brain works, this is why I don't like horror movies at all. Because I'm a fucking empath. I'm like, oh, that's a person that kills people. I'm like, oh God, I could be that person. And I don't like that feeling. The feeling of like, this is what humanity is, and you're one of them.
I feel like that eliminates your enjoyment of
A lot of things.
millions of films in existence.
I'm like, oh, that could be me. I could build a house like Jack. No thanks.
I can handle fictional violence in anything, but when it's like a
Right.
true story,
When
it
it's-
feels a bit
I can't do it.
exploitative.
I can't do it, man.
Well, you should feel good knowing that I very rarely recommend horror films. Once a year, usually.
Yeah, but like some horror films are fun though.
Yeah.
The Thing is technically a horror film,
Yes.
and it's fucking spectacular.
The Thing is an insane movie.
Alien is good. That's a horror film. I
Yes.
love that film.
Classic.
I gave my seal of approval. I'm like, this is a great film. I put myself through that film. I was like, I feel wrong for not seeing this, at least the first one, and like understanding the origin. And I was absolutely blown away. There's a certain elevation of like the dark arts, like the dark parts of human psychology that I just like. I don't like that feeling. But movies that are scary is better than like, you want to feel like dog shit for the next 2 hours?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I
Something
mean?
that revels in the misery. of
Yeah,
death.
that's hard, man.
Okay. 'cause
We
my-
just did that with Melancholia, by the way. But like,
Yes,
we gave an optimistic approach to that film, I think.
we did. I just got done editing that, so I just re-listened to the conversation, and it was a good episode.
Was it? I felt
Very
really good walking away from that one.
With that conversation in mind, my next question was actually going to be, do you hate seeing death in a movie like this? Or is it okay because it's campy and stylized?
It's okay because it's campy and stylized.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, like, I'm not going to lie to you. This movie, for some reason, like, pulls on my heartstrings. I don't know what it is.
Really?
I don't know if it's because I saw it when I was so young, but, like, for some reason, I still love this film.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's, like, a masterpiece by any stretch of the means, but I think there's a lot going on here that I think they do right. I think a lot of it's forgiving in the context of what it is. So when I assess the film and I'm like, okay, what's making this work for me? It's the action. I think the choreography in this film is really good.
It is.
I enjoy like this cinematography, which is not really something that I would single out in this film based on the fact that like I don't think it's like some beautiful film, but I enjoy the color palette a lot for what they're working with on their budget.
Sure.
Like,
okay.
for example, I enjoy the moments in the film where the saturation is blown up to transition the scene ending with a comic drawing over top of it and then transition into the next scene. Like,
Yeah, that worked nicely.
I enjoy that because specifically one for me, Frank D'Amico, when he's in his penthouse office during the daytime and he's saying he wants Kick-Ass's head on a fucking plate or whatever the hell he says. They blow up the saturation in that you have like really strong sky color and his face is so blown out you can see like his scar is extra highlighted. And it's also like makeup is done in a different way in this scene to make it look that way.
Oh.
And so I enjoy little things like that. It's like as a viewer, even though it's campy, I like the effort to kind of make it feel like a comic book because you have to view this film in the context of it being a comic book.
Yeah.
Like that's what I enjoy about it.
Okay.
The narration being those texts that aren't being said by character. Like you have Peter Parker talking inner monologue, telling the story.
I was
Who's the
about to
narrator?
say, this reminds me of like Raimi trilogy Spider-Man movies.
Exactly. And that's homage to how comic books are told. I mean, that's how the dialogue is given.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with any of those elements.
But that's why it works for me. It feels authentic, even though it's like not good in some ways.
Okay, I see that point. I mean, those are like the stronger elements of the film for
We
me
can tear
too.
it up. We can tear it up now.
I mean, I'm not gonna shit on it. There's a few things in the film that rub me the wrong way, but we'll get to those. In terms of like cinematography, direction, I actually think it's decently strong throughout most of the film. You talked about like the live action to comic book transition we get with Frank his name?
D'Amico.
Tripping up on my words here. But there's some like really neat transitions with just like the regular camera movement. There's one at the end of
Yeah.
the film where we're like in the penthouse and then the camera like moves up as if we're going up to the next floor. But then when we cross over, it's like we're in the comic book shop now and we're like
Right.
peeking over the racks of comics. Like stuff like that I appreciate a lot to make a seamless transition.
I also like the reuse of sets.
The reuse of sets?
Like the same sets being reused a lot. A lot. Granted, I think it's because the film's on a smaller budget. The story works in that way.
we do see Frank's penthouse a lot.
Yes.
They make full usage of that area,
We've got
especially.
Kick-Ass's room, the kitchen, the school, and
The comic book shop?
the warehouse, the penthouse. I never feel like the film expands out of a very small area. Like everything feels nice and tight.
And it doesn't need to either.
Right.
This is a relatively simple story. Do we get more usage out of Raoul's apartment, or is it just that scene? Although I guess they do use it well because we get a really great action sequence there.
Yeah, they do. That's where I think the film opens up into oh, this is where we're going.
Okay.
And that's what I like about that. It eerily reminds me of Pulp Fiction. The drug dealer's apartment in the opening of that film.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The massacre in there, the infamous, does Mr. Wallace look like a bitch?
Say what again, motherfucker?
Does he look like a bitch? I mean, by the way, we've never done that film. We've never talked about Pulp Fiction.
We haven't. We've only done one Tarantino.
Really?
Yeah.
Golly.
We ranked his films best to worst, or worst to best.
It feels wrong not to talk about Django, but we've covered so much.
Tarantino's coming on the podcast soon at some point on my half.
Summer heat got you reminded of something.
I think early summer would be good for some Tarantino.
This scene it's fun.
It's that stuff with Kick-Ass just not being good at this is what is my favorite element, in the film. He just brings a taser. It doesn't account for all the other goons.
I'm Razul. Can't you tell by my big titties? What the fuck is that? Why? Why is that dialogue?
She seemed really out of place, even in terms of costume design.
Yeah.
She looked like she belonged on the runway. What's she doing in this drug den?
She's a hooker, homie. She's paid to hang out there.
This looked like a Las Vegas hooker or something, not one on a side street in New York City.
I don't know, man.
That's a crazy scene. A man loses his leg.
Yeah. I told Elizabeth, I'm by the way, this guy's going to lose his leg. Be prepared.
I can't help but feel bad for the random stoner guy that was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Trying to hit his crack pipe, homie.
Hit girl couldn't let him go.
She's like, fuck these guys.
A sword to the chest is what he deserved, I guess.
Dad's a cop. What do you think?
We were talking about how the narration reminds me of Spider-Man, Raimi trilogy. The scene where Kick-Ass goes out to train jumping buildings, I swear to God, is the same set from Spider-Man 1, where Peter goes out to test his web for the first time. I'm not saying it's the exact same set, but it felt like a parody of that scene in a way.
You're right. That scene is I don't know. That's kind of one of those cheaps, ooh, I don't know if I like this. What was that movie that Drake Bell did? Or he played, they did a Spider-Man parody, basically.
I think it was just called A Superhero Movie.
Classic fucking title. Couldn't have fucking cooked it up better.
Well, scary movie, epic movie, It's the same guys that did all those crappy comedies. I've seen parts of it, actually. The Drake Bell one. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's not good. I've seen it many times when I was younger. There are moments in this film where I'm yeah, this is that. And that's kind of one of them.
I like Red Mist.
Yeah, fuck yeah, you do, you fucking bastard. Yeah, you do. Everybody fucking leaves. It's fucking McLovin, man.
It's McLovin.
It's come on.
The poor guy has been pigeonholed into McLovin for his whole life.
Fuck. Poor guy is right.
His name's Christopher Mintz-Plasse, I think.
Yeah.
Where's this guy been?
Living the fucking life, I bet. I bet he fucking fucks bitches and yeah, he's fine.
He showed up in Promising Young Woman, which we watched years ago, briefly.
Did he? When?
He was one of the creeps that Carey Mulligan brings home to shame.
Yeah. She brought home McLovin. That's fucking terrible.
But nothing since then.
No.
I know he shows up in the sequel, renamed as the motherfucker or something. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it does. I almost forgot. I forget the film ends oh yeah, let's set up a sequel. Fuck it.
That was a weird moment for me, actually.
Yeah.
The gunshot towards the camera.
Yeah, out the fucking balcony. But like also it's kind of believable. Like I immediately think of the scene after where it's like Chris is like, fuck, I shot. He like shoots the glass out. You know, like he's that character. He's a fucking idiot.
Yes.
And I love him. He's the best. I love Red Mist. I'm gonna get fucking Red Mist tattooed on me.
Like he's terribly uncool, but that's like what's fun about it.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, that's right. We're superheroes. Look at us.
You want to smoke a doob before we go to this job?
Weed helps me cool out on the job.
I find it interesting from like a writing standpoint that this is like the mob kid that's like eager to get into the family business.
Right.
I feel like in another film, the kid would rally against dad in some way, like having the bodyguard and like kids not being able to approach him at school.
Yeah, fuck off, like immediately. Okay.
He's just an evil fucker, just like his dad is.
Yeah, he is. Hey, man.
That's weird.
Sins of the father, man.
Another interesting thing with like family dynamics, we're taught within the film to like Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
Who has raised a serial killer super soldier daughter.
Yes.
But our villain actually like isn't that bad of a dad.
No, actually not.
Takes his kids to the movie, you know.
Oh my God.
Hey buddy, you want a slushie or something? Like he's playing the actual role of father.
Yes. He like, flips a switch after they just killed a man.
Tries to hide the coke before Red Mist walks into the room.
Yep.
Chris.
Yep.
Like, that's interesting.
Fucking kills a man in the street, by the way.
Who,
Kick-ass
Frank?
impersonator, yeah.
Yeah, that's like a weirdly brutal scene.
2 men. By the way, this movie reminded me that I want to own a Beretta 92 FS because that's what he shoots. I don't think it's an FS, but he shoots the stainless steel Beretta. That's his gun.
Yeah. I know nothing about guns.
Homie. It's so fucking cool. I want one so bad.
When I see guns in film, it's just, is it handgun, shotgun, or machine gun?
Yes.
Or bazooka.
Yes.
In this case. With the kick-ass impersonator scene,
yeah,
there's something weird about Frank, played by Mark Strong here, where I haven't seen this film in years. And I remember this scene, and I remember it just him coming up to the guy and shooting him. But there's something weird about this actor hitting like roundhouse kicks constantly in the film. There's something weird about this actor doing that. On screen.
Mark Strong?
Mark Strong.
Is that Frank D'Amico?
Yes.
Yes, Mark Strong.
He's like character actor guy.
Yeah.
He gets physical a lot in this movie.
Yeah. I kind of like him a lot. I kind of like him.
It's a unique choice because usually the boss might be a little weak.
The kingpin.
Like they need the gun.
Yeah.
But to see him do like karate is strange. And they kind of set it up earlier. It shows him in a dojo in the penthouse. I think he's like meditating in the scene, but like he has that. Like he has training.
Yeah.
You know?
For me, the thing I like about his character, you mentioned earlier, where it's like the dad. He's someone where it's like at the same time, even though he's this heinous fucking criminal, you're like, oh yeah, he's a good guy. Like in other ways. Fatherhood's a weird thing in this film. I don't think I should read into it that much, but there's like the mother figure is not something that's explored.
She has one scene.
She has one scene. There's only one mother. One mother's dead, or 2 mothers are dead and one's alive, and she's just like housewife. Doesn't show up in any other scene.
I can't remember what she even does in her scene. She has a line of dialogue, at least.
She says, like, do what you got to do.
I wonder how involved she is with, like, the Empire.
I would say not at all.
Not at all?
Yeah, not at all.
I'm sure that's explored in the comics at some point.
I don't know if I'm interested in reading Kick-Ass comic, though, to be honest with you.
I heard it's not good, actually.
Yeah, I would actually not care to read that.
I think it's a similar situation with, like, The Boys, where, like, the adaptation's better. The source material is a little try-hard edginess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, The Boys comic, I've tried to read a little bit of it. I'm not a fan. Also, I think the art direction, art style in general is just, like, really subpar.
It's not very inspired.
Yeah, it's very flat. Very, very flat.
I will say, when I read about some of the differences in this story compared to the comic, I think there was some unique stuff there that might have been more interesting in the film.
Really?
A bit. In the film, Nicolas Cage, he's on a revenge mission, like Frank D'Amico set him up. In the comic book, his backstory is something he's lying about. Like, he's similar to Kick-Ass in a way, where he just wants to live the fantasy. Like,
okay.
I don't know if that would...
It would change his character dramatically.
It would. That's like something you could do like as a twist later on, maybe like before he dies or something.
Right. Ooh, okay.
So you can have your fun with him when he's on screen, but then at the end, it can be like
There's a reality.
a reveal of some sort. I also think that Chris is unaware of his dad's involvement in the mob in the comic book.
Oh, okay.
And he comes to discover that later on.
Well, I'm sure they have a lot longer of time
Yeah.
in a comic book to...
This film didn't need that, at least.
No.
I actually think this film is already a little bit too long, in a way. At least by 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, I would say if it was 25 minutes shorter, the film would be not as good. But if it was 15 to 20, it would be a lot better.
There's a little fat to trim here,
Yeah.
I think.
I think there's a lot of lead-up scenes, like particularly like car scenes need to be changed. We don't need all this time in cars that aren't even being driven. It's like that 70s show car on a moving background.
Kick-Ass and Red Mist dancing to Gnarls Barkley.
Yes. I remember when. Like, you don't need that.
That felt like a pop culture thing to like put in the trailer.
Yeah.
I think that was in the trailer.
You're probably right. I think you are right. I don't know. The film would come off a lot darker in some ways, too, if you trim that out. The film is already pretty dark.
Yeah.
But it's funny and lighthearted, and it can get away with like really dark themes because they're writing it off with comedy. So, like this film without comedy wouldn't work. I mean, there's a very specific lane they're playing here. So there is a little bit of necessity with stuff like that too.
It plays its role.
Right.
I don't know where you would cut some stuff. In the third act when Hit Girl is cornered and like all the men are lining up scared to go
that's
around.
a long scene for what it is.
It goes way too long.
Yeah. And it also like completely derails momentum, what was built up into that.
Yeah.
And then it makes the final fight feel not as good.
It feels like it should have gone straight from Hit Girl murdering dudes in the hallway to face off with Frank.
I also think it would have made the campiness of the situation work because it's like, okay, that was fun, wasn't it? Now let's like really kick this over the top. Like, let's just cut this thing off. And it would like end on this high note of, look how tight that was. Like, we kind of made that work, didn't we? But then it immediately, like, it's the slowdown of momentum, action-wise, that like cheapens the effect of like the jetpack Gatling gun combo, which like that could have been cool. But when it happens, I'm like, fuck.
We've been waiting around for like 5 minutes now after that initial hallway scene.
How the fuck did this guy climb this fucking jetpack 64 fucking stories?
I actually don't remember how Kick-Ass gets the jetpack. Does he go back to the base
They
with
go back,
her?
yes.
Okay.
Which I actually like that scene. They leave the hot chocolate.
Yeah, that was good.
Like, that's good. That's smart. It ties back well with dialogue.
That's your tugging on the heartstrings type stuff.
Like that warehouse scene specifically, the kerosene when the live execution, that scene is like an emotional roller coaster for me still. Like,
there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, because you've got like we haven't even talked about it, but like you have like an apex of like the relationship between Katie and what's Kick-Ass's name? Mark? No.
Dave?
Dave. Yeah. Mark. Think, Mark, think. You haven't even seen that, you motherfucker. You gotta watch it.
What is that?
Invincible?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's coming back in March. I'm fucking hyped. It's like my favorite show.
If I do catch it, it'll be after the whole season's over.
Oh, dude, it's so fucking good. You'll love it.
There's so many things to get to, damn it. A lot of good stuff out there.
You and your fucking David Lynch.
Hey, I'm done with him.
Yeah, you are. I've discarded him like used women.
No, of course not.
I peeped the Alice in Chains record, by the way.
Yeah, that was Olivia's purchase when we went to was a record store in Mason, Westchester, I think.
Yeah.
I picked up that one right there, Stereo Lab.
I need to give you the stuff I got I fucking forgot. I knew there was one thing I was missing.
I'm intrigued because I have no idea what that could even possibly be.
It's good. I'm excited to give it to you.
Somehow we really haven't talked about Nicolas Cage's performance in this yet.
It's like one of my favorites from him, actually.
I don't think I've seen a ton of Nicolas Cage films. I've seen some of the unhinged ones, though, like Vampire's Kiss.
Yeah.
And
That's terrible. It's one of the worst movies ever. Ghost Rider, one of the worst movies ever. He's been in a lot of bad movies.
I've seen Ghost Rider. I've seen Face Off, which is pretty crazy from him.
I didn't get to see Pig or Mandy, like the stuff that like revived his career.
I heard those were good.
Yeah, I know, and I like haven't even checked them out.
I've never even seen National Treasure.
Oh my god, are you fucking kidding me?
Never seen it.
Oh, that's one of the best movies ever, man. Straight up. Like, that's straight up a good movie.
It belongs next to Godfather and Citizen Kane, that level.
Well, Godfather Part 2. Yeah.
Okay. Of course.
Which, by the way, I've really been meaning to open in that door here soon. It's coming sometime this year.
I almost recommended a Francis Ford Coppola film recently.
He's a director I'm completely blind on, and I would love to. I've seen inspiration. Like I've seen. You ever seen like a Bronx Tale with?
Ew.
Jesus.
Is Robert De Niro in it?
De Niro. He directs it, I think. You ever seen that?
I think. Is that the one where the kids get in trouble for pushing a hot dog cart down the subway stairs and it kills a guy?
Mm-mm.
No?
No. This is about...
That one's called Sleepers. Never mind.
Never heard of it, actually.
De Niro's been in a lot of mob-type films.
It's his face. It's his accent. It's everything about him belongs there. We're so off track.
It's okay. But Cage he's good in this. I think he's actually kind of reserved most of the time.
I think it's his subtleness in his performance. Like, he's fucked up. He's fucked up in a way where he feels as a person like an outsider, and his personality kind of reflects that. He calls his daughter child. It's like this really... Is it Southern? Like, I can't tell.
I don't know, because this is like New York.
There's something about his cadence, the character's design, like his appearance.
To look like a cop.
Or like a pedophile.
Oh.
he kind of has a pedophile look to him.
I didn't even think about that.
He's got there's a creepiness to him. He's like a middle-aged father with a young kid.
I think there's just something weird going on because it's Nicolas Cage. Like, he can't help himself. He's doing like an Adam West impersonation when he's Big Daddy.
Oh my God. Yeah, like his...
Or more like kick ass. Ha.
Like he delivers it so dry. And in my head, I'm like, wait, is this just him trying to cover up his identity by like not talking in a way that's like a recognizable...
I think so.
Speech pattern?
This is like a Batman parody.
Yes, but at the same time, it's, yes, Adam West. Which I almost forget about. Like, no one ever talks about Adam West. Now it's just like, oh... Who's the best Batman? Like, no one ever says Adam West, but it's a unique, different thing.
I think Family Guy kind of brought Adam West back a little bit.
Yeah, it's the pop culture reference of it.
Yeah, but not quite the same as remembering him for like a great role.
Yeah, it was a parody. It's back when chaps used to talk like this, and there wasn't any colored boys in the baseball league. like, I'm sorry, but that's just the nature of the beast.
You're not wrong.
You know?
Even when he's out of character, like, you're right about like him calling Mindy child. If she asks him a question, he'll be like, "Oh, honey bun." Like, that stuff is pretty funny.
All these terms of endearment. I'm going to put a bullet in your chest.
I think the movie was lacking more Cage.
Yeah, for sure.
I need more Cage.
Need more cowbell, for sure.
More cowbell, please.
Foo Fighters.
He had some insane delivery in his death scene where he's like, kryptonite.
Okay. I'm in the perfect headspace for this right now. My dad used to fucking laugh his ass off at this scene for that specific reason. Now switch to Robin's Revenge, like just fucking screaming like it's so over the top, and I fucking love it. Like, Nicolas Cage is the only guy that can fucking get away with it. He's the only guy in the room that can get away with that shit.
He can't help himself but over-deliver.
Nicolas Cage is a lane of comedy on its own. Like, there's a deep lore behind Nicolas Cage as an actor.
Yes.
His comedic delivery has become something transcendent of him as an actor. Like, it's a meme.
It's legendary.
And it's fully showcased in that scene. It just cracks me up every time.
I hate that he was kind of relegated to like B-movie, like Redbox flicks for such a long time. Like generic action stuff.
You know what's weird about it? It's like, I'm not even mad that he did that. Like, it just feels right for him to be there.
Yeah. And I think he owed a lot of money in taxes or something. So he wouldn't turn down a role ever.
I love it. Bad with money, Nicolas Cage.
I wonder what the fuck he did.
He probably talked to Wesley Snipes. What about this film for you? By the way, I don't know if I really asked you. So, like, how many times have you seen the film?
I saw it at least once or twice around the time it came out. And then I watched it twice in this week.
Really? Okay.
I did.
See, I only watched it once, and it was this week. And I think something about me just watching it once let the movie feel pretty good. Like I had a positive reception to it. Did that second viewing like kind of crush you in any way? Like did it feel like, oh, that sucks?
I think my second viewing was actually better than the first. I think I was more annoyed by certain things the first time around.
For you, what were those moments that were annoying? And like what scene specifically, if they did annoy you, did they change at all?
There's a subplot within the film with him and this girl. What is her name?
Katie. Yeah, I forgot about this.
Something has aged so terribly in every aspect too. She thinks he's gay, so he takes advantage of this misunderstanding and like gets to see her like naked. This is like your aged early 2010 stuff. But even in the fact that when he gets stabbed in the beginning of the film and run over by the car, which is one of my favorite moments too of dark comedy.
Yeah.
I know they say the paramedic like cuts the clothes off him so he's naked, and like the rumor goes around that people think he's gay because
of that.
Because they thought he was raped or something.
Yeah.
This was like too juvenile for me. Like a really terrible misunderstanding of...
Yeah.
I think I could handle this aged material a bit better if Kick-Ass and Katie didn't get together in the end.
Katie's character would have been better off being a tragic flaw where he loses her in the end. Like, he should not get the girl. His character hasn't really earned it through his actions at all.
He feels like a type of character that would just be better off on his own anyways. Like in the
Which
future.
is where he starts, by the way.
Yes. And that's kind of like what... I know we've talked about Spider-Man a lot, but I think Peter Parker works better alone. He doesn't need Mary Jane or... What was his buddy's name in the new series? Ned. I like Ned, and I like MJ. But he doesn't need him.
Right.
Makes him a better character without them, to lose them.
Oh, that's what Peter Parker's character has been. He is the hero that sacrifices the most.
Yes. Which I can't wait to see be explored in this next Spider-Verse film.
Apparently it's supposed to be the best one, man. And I think
really?
I think it'll be fucking spectacular. By the way, the second one like about makes me cry. The first one about makes me cry. The second one fucking rips my heart out too. Like,
those are special films.
Part of me loves this movie, and at the same time I'm like, the things that work against it, I'm willing to forgive them in some way because it's still the same tone and maturity level carried throughout. And so you kind of just have to kind of take it what it is. The parts that like hit really high are great, but the lows are just like you kind of want to forget about them.
I feel like it definitely takes me back to a specific time in my life. We kind of talked about like time capsules earlier, but MySpace?
Yeah, it's like an adolescence trip down memory lane. I kind of like that. It's like a little bit of a memorabilia for me, or, you know, a deep cut. You know, I almost forget about this movie, but it's like what I remember about it being fun was still there. Like that being like the characters, the action, the over the top.
I feel the same way.
It's funny. Like, it is funny. I did laugh audibly many times.
It got me a few times. It wasn't as funny as I remembered it being, but it did have its moments.
It's not the Big Lebowski, but
no,
there's something there.
The only thing I think we might have missed was like, we briefly mentioned it earlier, but like the warehouse scene with the nanny cam. I think that was like a fun transition where through the eyes of the teddy bear, and then we kind of expand out and then watch the scene unfold. And once it ends, we kind of like retract back into the teddy bear.
Yeah. I like that scene.
I think that warehouse scene was really well directed, but I don't think the editing did it any favors.
The editing falls apart in the end of that scene specifically for me because I think it's a cool intro and it's a good action scene, but it feels very montagey, and I also feel like I can see where Nicolas Cage is just walking through a set. There is a little bit of, I get pulled away from it. I do want to compliment this film because I think in a way that this film kind of lays a little bit of groundwork for movies that'll come later like John Wick, in which spawned its own subgenre of action film where it's real schlocky kill fest. You know,
yeah,
there's something to be said about those movies. Like, they are fun in their own way, but like the writing is terrible.
It's like non-existent.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Like Nobody, like that's a really poorly written film, but it's just an action montage.
You want to see Bob Odenkirk punch people.
Yes. You want to see Bob Odenkirk after he had a heart attack or like before or whatever the fuck. There's something to be said there where it's like, okay, you get a little bit of that, But the story's really working to sell those moments a lot better, I think, than a movie like John Wick, where John Wick's just like, let's throw you in the fire.
Yeah, this is much better in that aspect, for sure. What I was getting at with the warehouse scene, I feel like that was directed, like filmed in one take, Birdman style.
Right.
And then they like chopped it up later on. It would have
Yes,
been better.
I agree.
It would have been much better with that raw. Let's just watch him come in.
Like, watch the whole tactical takedown.
Yeah, like point A to B, see the whole thing.
I agree. It is chopped up in that way. Also, like, you get like these camera shakes real heavy with like in sync with flashbangs and gunshots. And
Yeah.
there is a lot of like in-camera movement for choreography cued sound bites, and it's edited in a really strange way.
And I'd seen criticism online that Matt Vaughn usually has this problem in his films, choppy action editing.
Yeah. Kingsman is littered with it, by the way. A lot of like in-sync choreography to music that's being played, like, which we get that later in the Penthouse films.
Yeah.
Or, excuse me, Penthouse scenes. And that's okay, but it's so rhythmic that it kind of can take away a little bit of the badassery, and it kind of plays it off.
You know, the music was actually the last thing I was going to ask you about in this conversation. What did you think either about the score or usage of licensed music in this film? Because there's a lot of both.
The score reminded me of Sam Raimi, like strings, Spider-Man, knockoff Spider-Man themes, basically, which is okay. It works. Like, there's a reason why it was used. Like, it's a formula that works. But like the licensed music kind of like made the film feel like a little hood radish in a way. Like,
I'm really picky about licensed music
Yeah.
in films.
which we already mentioned earlier with like him and Red Mist, Gnarls Barkley.
Like, what's the hot hit
Yeah.
right now? I'll also say that using the song Bad Reputation during like a girl power moment in film is like way too overused.
It's done many times.
I enjoyed the usage of the Elvis song when he comes up through the jetpack, like his introduction scene. It's like a live concert recording of Elvis because we get like
funny.
audience clapping at the end of it.
That's right, you do.
And I liked that. That was a unique, fun choice.
I feel like the jetpack is fucking dumb.
That was not a...
It's bad because it also highlights the fact that Dave has nothing to do with this final act.
He takes the backseat
Yeah.
of the story.
And then like all of a sudden, like this guy that's been kicked in the dick all night is somehow flying a jetpack. Elizabeth even made the comment while we were watching it, like, she's like, if that actually happened to him, those bruises would be a lot worse. I'm like, yeah, the man would be in a hospital for 3 weeks minimum.
I don't know how I feel about him killing people in the end. Like, it felt wrong for him to successfully murder anybody.
You dirty motherfuckers. Like, he gets his fucking Bruce Willis moment. Like, what the fuck? I don't know, man. That, like, the end of the film really leaves like a sour taste in my mouth, where I think where the film really peaks and it feels at its true authentic self is when Big Daddy dies. Like, that scene specifically, the execution. That's where the film feels like all the pieces are in the right place. You have Katie, even though her character is poorly written, her acting in this moment of her watching the live stream feels authentic in a way to the characters. Hit Girl is like there to save her dad, and then like Dave is just wrapped up in some bullshit. And then you even get like the stuff with the side characters. They're making progress in their character development. Like the two nerds, and like one of them gets a girl, like Katie's friend. Even though it's not that big of a deal, it makes sense within the story. And then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, Gatling gun, jetpack at the end, the bazooka.
I feel like Hit Girl should have been the one to successfully kill everybody in the end. Dave being successful kind of goes against the premise in a way.
Right. Like he should die.
I don't even know if he should die. He should just not be good at this.
Yes.
I'm not ready for this kind of life.
He's not ready to fly a jetpack through the city when dawn breaks. Like, that fucking pisses me off, actually.
When he flies through the city.
Yeah. Like, they should be walking home.
It's way too epic.
Yeah, it makes no sense. That fucking pisses me off. That's the aspect of the film where I'm like, fuck you. Everything else was great, but this. Like, I can forgive everything but this moment.
Can I briefly mention before we close out here that Evan Peters makes a comment about wanting to fuck Hit Girl?
I think I'm in love with her. I think she's about 12.
I'll save
I'll
myself.
save myself for her. I solemnly swear to save myself for her.
I think that put me off
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah. That was really weird.
Like, you had to write that to the page, and then it made its way
Also,
through many editing revisions into the film.
how do you think that made the actress feel at the time? Like, to know that was commented about her being so young. Like, it's so weird.
When I Googled Kick-Ass yesterday on YouTube, up comes a video of Chloe Grace Moretz talking about how uncomfy she felt.
During that whole filming process.
Not about Kick-Ass specifically, but just being sexualized at a young age. And I thought of this scene.
Oh, how times have changed, my friend. What, it's fucking wrong to like little girls or something? I mean, come on. Anyway, strange, ain't it?
I don't think we have anything else. Not that I can think
Exhausted my care. I think for me, the parts of me that can turn my brain off would give this movie like a 7.5. But I think the parts of me that are like, ooh, like, that's rough. You can't do that no more. It's like, it says like somewhere like a good 6.5. There's a lot working here for me, but at the same time, is it like a sum of its parts or just some parts that make me happy? You know? But it was a good trip down memory lane. I enjoyed that.
I think this film has many strong individual scenes. I think where I'm coming from, I'm just a bit disappointed that it underdelivers for me on certain elements of the premise, and then some of the not so well-aged stuff as well.
The movie's over 10 years old now. Like, it'll be approaching 15 years old in a couple years.
Which is bizarre.
Which I think it will show even more of its time. It will become worse over time, unfortunately.
I'm sure. I sit somewhere between a 5 and a 6,
Yeah.
I think.
I think culturally, like, us reviewing this right now will be a time capsule in itself. Like, we might get, like, 10 years away now and say, wow, like, ooh, it's even worse.
Yeah.
You know?
Even this felt like a bit of a wake-up experience.
Yeah, man, it's like right before 2014, 2016, that range is when, like, a lot of more, like, social wokeness type of language was starting to be introduced, and then where we're at now, which, like, is another conversation and stuff that you and I don't think we need to have on the air, but
No.
it's weird to see where it lies in terms of pop culture. It's quite interesting.
Piss break.
Anyway, you've got the floor. Like, it's yours now.
During the brief break that we just took, I gave you the choice between film and album.
Yes.
As to what we're doing next. And you chose album.
Yes.
Which I actually wasn't expecting.
I usually am the one that doesn't want to talk about albums
I know.
as much. Yeah.
You don't recommend albums very often.
You know, I'm a song guy right now. I've been that way for a couple years now, where I'm like, if it's not nostalgic, I'm typically churning through new songs constantly. So I don't have time to really, or at least I don't give myself the time to explore albums in the way that I used to.
And I get that because I think a majority of music listeners kind of experience music that way, like playlists, Spotify weekly, that kind of thing.
A mood.
Yeah, mood. I've made mood playlists
Yeah.
for Spotify. I was scouring through our catalog of episodes recently, and I came to the realization that we've never talked about an album from the 1980s.
Yeah. You had kind of mentioned that not too long ago, I think.
Did I?
I think so. I think it's a decade we haven't touched, yeah.
And it's weird that we haven't. We've hit 60s, 70s, 90s, 10s, aughts, 2020s. I think the 80s is something that I used to reject on a grand scale.
As many of us do.
I think in this past year, I kind of finally gotten past that.
Yeah.
I've been listening to like Tears for Fears and The Cure, The Smiths. Like, these are great bands.
Yeah, The Cure.
We're not doing The Cure tonight, but we always think about hair metal and like lame pop.
Yeah.
But this is a band that I've actually liked for a few years. They were one of the main entryways into the 80s for me. And they actually are the band that Radiohead got their name from. They stole a song title from this group.
Okay.
This is a band that kind of came out in the 70s. They're doing sort of a underground, like punk-ish thing. And when they came into the 80s, their eccentric lead singer started bringing new influences into the band,
Okay.
including influence from Nigerian music, African polyrhythms, funk with electronics, and a series of looping grooves.
Okay. Dave Matthews Band. Sorry. That's 90s. Apology.
And I don't know if you know who Brian Eno is, but he assisted with production and songwriting on this record.
I'm
He's
not
like
sure.
an ambient
Oh,
kind
okay.
of artist. But it's the album Remain in Light by the Talking Heads.
The Talking Heads. I've heard of this band. Not
Yes.
familiar really at all. Ah, yeah, it's sitting over there.
Yeah, that's the album that we're talking about.
Okay.
I was a bit hesitant about this one because it's only 8 tracks,
Oh, okay. How long's the record?
like 45 minutes, maybe?
This could be like a really tight episode, though.
It might be.
Okay. To get off the rails, exploratory.
Like I said, the lead singer was eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
Like the lyrics kind of cover like some political
Okay.
topics, maybe some emotional stuff, like societal, but like in a really weird way.
Okay.
I think 80s Modest Mouse commentary from a madman, you know?
Okay. All right. So it's not like, started my car yesterday,
No, it's not like that.
drove up the town.
And the music is very layered. It's like very groove heavy.
Okay. I'm buying in it.
Hopefully you like this.
It'll be an interesting talk.
It's different at least.
I've been in a very jazz, rhythmic, soul mood, so it'll be something that probably sit adjacent in some way.
Maybe.
We'll get there.
It's like an anxious, tightly wound thing, like tension constantly being released.
Oh, good. So it's the Swans.
Not quite. It's more fun than that.
Oh, okay. It's not soul crushing. Cool.
This is considered one of the greatest albums from the 80s.
Okay.
So it is widely acclaimed.
All right. I'm ready.
I hope so.
Technically a rock record, I guess.
Yeah?
80s rock, maybe. Yeah. We'll get there. We'll have fun. We'll digest it. We'll figure it out.
Not in a cheesy way. You've never heard anything quite like this.
Okay. Now I'm intrigued. Never heard anything quite like this. Okay. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
All right, man. Well, Getter, until next time, if you could do me the great pleasure of getting us out of here.
Adios.